Nothing. There we go. All right, cool. Sorry about that, guys. So my name's Alan Knoll. I'll speak later. I'll be calling off everybody and kind of letting everybody share their stories. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. We got people from the community here. We have survivors from all across the country here. And we're very thankful to Amanda and Miranda for helping get this. This is their event. And I'm just helping in any way I can in launching this. So we'll dive right in. We have Sean with Naira. Where's Sean? Sean.
He's right there. He's coming.
Oh, cool. Come on up, Sean. We'd love to hear your speech, and let's all give it up for Sean.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hello, allies, survivors, and advocates of abuse in this troubled teens industry. I stand here as a survivor and advocate on this issue. My name is Ashawn Dabney Small. I'm an advocate, activist, and vice president of the National Youth Rights Association. We come here to reflect and mourn the experiences and trauma we have faced in our younger years. We come to acknowledge that there is a past that has affected us. We come to call out those who have taken part in this abuse. Members of Agape, Circle of Hope, and I are survivors. Surviving is a noun, meaning still living after surviving. Another or others have died or died out. Many of us have taken our own lives because of this traumatic experience, and I've come to share our stories. Our stories, our survival, are a true testament of our strength and courage to continue to live on and tell our stories. Bazinga! May know what took place in these institutions. No child should ever be told how they should grow up, what to wear, and how are they to show up in this world. Being a queer Black male, I've been dealt with conversion therapy while I faced abuse by the institution in my freshman years of high school. This issue isn't just personal. This issue is nationwide. There are children who still face this injustice to this day. We stand in the gap and we stand tall and strong because we will not let this define how we live our lives we choose to live so that we can tell our stories and stand in the gap. So those who face this know we stand with you. Don't be afraid and hold on to your identity. Don't let anyone tell you who you are supposed to be. Your life, your stories matter. Today you will meet other survivors like myself, and hopefully this will give you hope, because we will continue to fight for you and we will win. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sean. That was awesome, dude. Really good job there. So next I'm going to call out Janine. She's going to come and speak. Janine, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, Janine!
Woo!
About telling my story. I'm probably sound better if I take this off. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Janine Miller, and I'm a survivor of a lockdown residential program. It was called Victory Christian Academy, and it was located in Ramona, California.
Bazinga!
In this compound, I was duct taped and tied to a chair while other students degraded her in the name of God. I witnessed girls being force-fed and also threatened to eat their own vomit. We were all threatened to eat our own vomit if we threw up. We were dictated when we could go to the bathroom.
Bazinga!
These places were awful, and I wrote a book called Pieces of Victory of my story of what happened to me, and half of it is a love story and half of it is awareness on child abuse. I was on Netflix with James Swift, Haunted, season 2. He suffered the worst case of child abuse that I've ever heard, and this conversion therapy. He was tortured, he was put in a cage, he was forced to eat dog food, and he was tortured beyond belief. He was sodomized, there was sex trafficking, and this was to make him straight. It's just awful what they do to these children in these camps, and they are camps here in the U.S. There, I can go on and on. Gabriel Gonzalez, he's an activist. He survived Freedom Village, and they closed it down, but no one was prosecuted, and they are free to rebrand. Same thing with James Swift, New Bethany. He was free for many years to rebrand. I can go on. The preacher that abused me at Victory Christian Academy, he rebranded to Lighthouse and Genesis by the Sea, and he was never prosecuted. So he lived free to abuse many other girls, and there are allegations like no tomorrow on my website. You can visit piecesofvictory.com and scroll down to the end, and you will see many articles proving that he is indeed a monster that got away with a lot. And I know my story is not the only one. There are so many others. This is an epidemic that's happening in our country, and by telling our story, by being brave and spreading the awareness, will definitely help. I gave up on a bill that we were trying to pass to provide oversight. I just felt like nothing was happening. It was introduced by George Miller in 2010, and it was reintroduced by Adam Schiff, and still nothing is being done. We need to regulate these schools. And Senator Sarah Gelser gave me hope. I attended a Zoom conference with her, and she blew me out of the water with how detailed she was on trying to prevent child abuse in these teen programs. They're actually doing so much in Oregon. And if we could just use that as a model for federal, that would be wonderful. And I know that Adam Schiff will help collaborate with her, and I just see great things in the future. I'm not going to give up hope. So I hope that everyone will feel the same way, that by telling our stories, there is hope.
Thank you, Denise.
Woo, thank you.
So now, by the way, thank you, Janine, and all that you do. So we have Amanda, as you all know, Amanda Householder. She's got something she wants to share, and we'll also call her again later to speak some more. So go ahead, Amanda.
Hi guys, like Alan said, my name is Amanda Householder. I will be reading a letter from a mother. She wrote this at 4 in the morning in tears, and let's just start. My name is Teresa Tucker, and I heard of Circle of Hope in 2014 from my pastor who knew some missionaries that heard of this facility. Not knowing what it was like on the inside, in December 2014, I enrolled my daughter into Circle of Hope Girls Ranch as my last resort. We had tried 2 other drug rehabs, and it didn't help her. It just allowed her to get more connections outside the facility. So I went out on a Sunday night to buy $100 worth of things that Circle of Hope requested you to buy, that you guys never got to war or ever got back. My daughter got into drugs when she was 12 years old, when I lost my mom, and she had a hard time with it. But she was really good at not showing it. That's when she turned to drugs. When I enrolled her, Mr. Householder stated how they have schooling in there for kids, counseling, and that Mrs. Householder was a nurse and would be giving her any medication that my daughter took. Not knowing Mrs. Householder takes them off without weaning them off, which is very dangerous for people. How would you know this unless you were a nurse, which she wasn't? He also went to tell me that for punishment would be taking away their privileges if they were not acting right, and that he had some girls that he had restrained if they were not acting right, and that he had some girls that he had to restrain until they calmed down. Not knowing about the 5 to 8 girls on top of one with pressure points help. He left that info out, of course. you that your child needs those 30 days to adapt and get used to the facility. Where now we know that wasn't true at all. They tried to manipulate and brainwash the kids and parents during those 30 days, and not knowing what they were doing to her during those days as well. I would call nearly every day. Mrs. Householder would tell me that my daughter wasn't having a good day. She was disrespecting them, not doing her schoolwork, not knowing they don't do schoolwork for the first 30 days at all. The first time I spoke with my child, Mr. and Mrs. Householder had her tell me lies that supposedly happened. I was confused, thinking, what in the world did I just hear? I had a lot of emotions running through my head, but the manipulated person Mr. Householder was, he had an agenda, and I didn't see it at first. Parents don't see that because we know the things that we had to go through. That's why my daughter was in there in the first place. Mr. Householder would feed on your emotions. The second time I spoke to my daughter, she advised me that she lost weight and they hung up the phone. I was confused, so I called back. They would advise me that she was being disrespectful, so they had hung up. They let my daughter back on the phone, and my daughter yelled out, "They are starving me. They aren't feeding me," and once again, the phone was hung up. The second time I called back, Mr. Householder advised me she was acting out, and none of that was true. That day I saw red flags and went and got my daughter. They begged me not to pick her up. I was there within 3 days. My neighbor rode with me. When we got there, my neighbor stated, let's do what the hell we need to do and get out of here. When my daughter walked up to me, I advised her to do whatever the hell he wants and let's go. My daughter broke down in tears, knowing she was finally saved from this horrifying place. Mr. Householder wouldn't let me take her until we signed a letter stating that she had not been abused and not sexually abused. At this point, when I saw my daughter and she was sick looking because she lost a lot of weight, I signed that paper just to save my daughter, and I left. You can only imagine the next 8 hours of traveling, and the stories my daughter told were horrifying. I contacted the police department here in Humansville, and they advised me since I live in Texas, there was nothing they could do. So I contacted CPS to see what they could do, and they stated that they would go out and investigate. They called me back about a couple of weeks later and said that they went out and there was nothing they can do. And then I proceeded to contact the sheriff's department in Springfield and got the same reply as I did when I spoke with the Humansville police. I was so mind-boggled on why they couldn't help me. I kept on for about 4 years and nothing. Then my daughter saw a YouTube video about Amanda Householder and called me. I was so relieved and praying that this would be the breakthrough that I had tried for years to have. I got a hold of Janine Miller and a couple of other girls via Facebook and was put in contact with Amanda Householder. Here we are today standing before you having this rally. I feel honored standing before you today. My mission is for the Householders' mom, dad, and one son to be behind bars and be prosecuted. So you girls can get the justice you need for all the physical and mental abuse you had to endure during your stay at Circle of Hope. We also have a Facebook page that is a mother and daughter dream team, helping survivors teen programs. Please go on that page and follow us so we can help people all over the world that is in your position now and don't have any idea what to do or where to run. Teresa Tucker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
That was really emotional. And thank you, Amanda, for sharing Teresa's story. Boy, this never gets easier. Right, guys? We all lived it, and we know what's to be said, but boy, is it rough. So thank you for sharing that. And next, I'm going to call up Colton. Colton went to Agape, and here he is. Let's give it up for Colton.
How's everybody doing? Just found out I was speaking. On my way to ask to speak. So,
Thank you.
My name's Colton Strog. Some of you may know me. I know some of the survivors do. I've talked to some reporters. I'm not used to speaking in a microphone in front of a bunch of people. So I went to Agape back in 2006 for the second time. I stayed there until I graduated in 2009. I was 17. I didn't have a home to go home to. Like many of us that went to Agape or Circle of Hope or some of these schools, some of us deserve to be in a place because we had our own issues as teenagers, right? I'm not really going to get into some of mine, but I definitely needed to be in a place where I could get some help. The help I got, though, was not the help I needed. I didn't need to get beat up and abused from staff members on a daily basis. I didn't feel like I didn't need to watch kids try to commit suicide and then in the process get restrained and beat up afterwards. I tried to start a riot at Agape because of the abuse that we were enduring. And it was a day in and a day out thing that happened on a daily basis. And it makes me so mad because Agape looks so amazing. It's so beautiful. They're a pillar of the community here in Stockton, right? And the doors are mag-locked for a reason so that they can't come in and we can't get out. So no one sees what goes on behind the closed doors. Same as Circle of Hope, right? Because I know a householder, he was a staff member there when I was. And some of the things he did to us, I feel so bad for you ladies because I know it's true. And then you've got other schools running around here. You got Masters Ranch in Couch, Missouri. You got Legacy Boys Academy right down the road. Both of those schools are all former Agape staff members. Legacy Ranch, that guy that runs that school used to abuse us. He used to beat us. I was 17, he choked me out. So they're running rampant here. So I'd like to, that's kind of why I'm talking. Another reason why I'm talking is I'm here for the voices that can't be spoken to. We've had kids from Agape kill themselves based on some of the abuse they endured there from the 90s, the 2000s, up until present day. I'm here to talk for them. I'm here to talk for the girls that can't speak for themselves. Also for the kids that are still in these schools right now. I think Agape's got 150 students in there. Thank God Circle of Hope is shut down. Ain't nobody in that one. Yeah. That's a win. We did something right. Thank God for Amanda, because if she didn't say something. So we're one down, a few more to go, but we can do it. And if we can't shut them down, then we need laws to change. We need laws in this town right here and in this state to change. We need some laws out there. I know the legislators, I wish they could be here, but they're listening to us thanks to the Kansas City Star. Judy has been amazing. I wish I could, there's so much I wish I could do for her. But they're listening. They held a committee last week, and I listened to the whole thing. I got in trouble. I was at work listening to it. You know what? I got to take some hours. My bad, y'all. But I did. I listened to it, and they touched on the abuse that was going on in these schools. They touched on not being able to come in there because they're not regulated. So I'm hoping that all changes. At the very least, if we can't close them down, we need to get them licensed, and we need to get them regulated.
Background checks.
Yes. We need the government to be able to walk in there and say, no, I'm going to do a health inspection right now. I'm going to walk through these hallways and see if this building's clean. I'm going to walk through here, and I'm going to see if I got kids with rug burns on their face, or I'm going to ask why there's a hole in this wall the size of a body. We need to be able to do that. And then not only that, we need to get the boys in these schools and the girls in these schools a voice to reach out to them while they're in there.
Yes.
I was there for a total of 5.5 years, and I never one time saw a police officer or a CPS agent come to that school. I had to run away from Agape for them to come to me.
We can do better.
We can do better.
We can do better, but we need to do better. I flew from New Mexico to come out here. I don't like this town. I don't even like being in Missouri because of what I had to go through here.
Yeah!
I fucking hate it. And it makes me so mad that I have to come here because 12 years later, it's still going on. I listened to a podcast from a kid from Agape like 2 months ago. He's still getting beat up by Brian Clemson. All these staff members, you want to talk about a person, Brian Clemson needs to be put in prison. That
Yes.
He beats us up. He abused us. Boyd Householder needs to. He beat
Yes.
the girls up. Ron Sheldon needs to be in prison.
Yes!
All these
Whoa!
people need to be in prison. And the staff members that watched it happen, you need to be held accountable. Because you're just as guilty.
Yes.
We're living people. We're the ones that are speaking now. And I hope to God we hold you accountable. These Missouri state legislators, they're going to hold you accountable one day. And if you believe the Christian faith like you say, God's going to hold you accountable for the way you treat us.
Yes!
All right? that I can say we're not kids anymore. And with social media, we have a huge voice. And we're going to use it. And if you ain't listening, you better start listening. Because we're here.
We ain't going nowhere. Woo!
Boys, you can feel the passion there, man. Good job, Colton. Thank you so much. And you know, one thing before I call up the next one, and everybody good to keep going, by the way. We can do an intermission. Anybody wants to smoke, we can take a break. But everybody good to keep going?
Yes.
So that was awesome, by the way. The passion's there. And I just want to say something before we add the next one, and that is we will be heard, like he says, and everybody deserves better. And I just that was just so awesome how he said everything was so cool. Yeah. So thank you again, Colton. Give me one more. So next, I'm going to be calling up Maggie, and she's going to come up and speak. So let's give it up for Maggie.
Maggie! Maggie!
So the sound is one of those things that we're trying to, is as best you can because of the wind. So I'm sorry guys, we're battling the wind and trying to balance it. So go ahead, thank you.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hello everyone, my name is Maggie Drew, I'm 28. I was a girl at Circle of Hope for about 5.5 years. I got there October 20th of 2007 and I was held there against my will until I was 20 years old in January 8th of 2013. I witnessed and was subjected to a lot of abuse. There was mental abuse, physical abuse, there was sexual abuse on multiple accounts that I was there for, that I witnessed, that I dealt with personally. I remember DHS coming out a couple times because we had a run, and it blew my mind because they didn't do anything. Like, we were still on our own, nobody was listening to us, we didn't have enough proof. And I think it's very important that all of us have come out because we're the proof. This is what we got, you know. As Colton said, we're not kids anymore. This isn't okay. It's never been okay. And what they've been doing is incredibly wrong. So while I was there, my dad had custody and he died suddenly, very, very quickly. They told me that I didn't have anywhere else to go. I didn't have any family, nobody wanted me. I was too much of a burden, I would backslide, so they were just gonna throw me into his staff. They weren't paying me as staff. They actually stole my inheritance when I was still a minor. Boyd made advances on me. He was grabbing me, trying to tell me that he treated his own daughter the same way, and I just couldn't believe it. And one day he told me that I reminded him of his wife, and that was why it was an issue. And I snapped and I said, you know what? At 20 years old, I finally got the ground, and I finally was done. And I said, if you want to kiss your wife, she's in the next room. You can go kiss her. They demoted me and put me on the wall as a punishment. You stand there for hours, days, months, until I left. And then they took all of my money, made me sign similar papers. I wasn't abused. They didn't do anything to me, or they weren't going to buy my bus ticket for me to leave. So I signed the papers because at that point, I didn't care. Anything was better than staying there. As an adult, I had to relearn everything. I had no education. School was not a priority. School wasn't accredited. Nobody knew anything about my credits when I left. At 20 years old, I still was in 9th grade. I was still a freshman in high school. So I had to go and get my GED and handle everything from scratch because they didn't help us. Their goal was to keep us there for as long as possible. I watched them lie to parents all the time, on the phone, on visits. They would tell the parents, you know, oh, well, this is just them lashing out at you. They're backsliding. They don't really mean the things that they're trying to do, but we still have to correct it. And that's why you're not talking to them. That's why you're not getting letters. They screened all of our mail, all of our calls. Like Ms. Tucker had mentioned, they'd hang up on you. They wouldn't, if we tried to talk about anything, the phone was gone. We didn't get calls anymore. We couldn't talk to our parents. We couldn't speak freely. They underfed us. They made us eat vomit if we threw up our food. They put girls on massive portions of food or extremely small portions of food depending on their weight, and based off if Boyd thought they needed to lose weight or if they needed to gain weight because they were going to bring attention to the people at the church. And the sad thing is, the people at the church, some tried and a lot of them covered it up. And for me, it was awful. It was heartbreaking going to church every Sunday, every Wednesday with people, and they would see us, 3 rows of girls sitting there reading our Bibles. We weren't allowed to talk to people unless they came up to us. And it was ridiculous. We had no way of reaching out to tell anybody, like, help us. And I think that that's important and why we're all here, because kids need that voice. Kids need somewhere where they can be safe.
Yeah.
And especially if you're sent to a place that is supposed to take care of you and is supposed to help you through your life, how is damaging and breaking them down going to help anything? I watched the restraints go for hours. I watched girls restrained in their own vomit and urine and then couldn't get up. They lost feeling in their extremities. And they were still made to scrub up the mess because they had made it. And it was their fault that they were there to begin with. I don't want to see that happen to kids anymore. And that's why I'm here, because I was one of those kids. And through all of the hardships and all of the struggles and all of the pain and the therapy, I'm standing here and telling them it's not acceptable. We're not kids anymore. We're not going to let this continue to happen. We're going to raise hell until something happens.
You tell them,
and we fix this.
So next I'm going to call up somebody that's been incredibly courageous and bold. I'm going to embarrass her right now. But everyone that's come up today has been courageous and bold. Yeah. Amanda didn't go to a program. She's got quite the story, and I'll let her talk about it, but she was incredibly courageous and bold in a lot of ways that many of you are. And we're so happy that you helped make this all happen, and we're so happy for those steps that you've taken out. So let's all give it up big for Amanda Householder.
I want to first start this. Every circle of hope girl here, especially Maggie, I owe you a huge apology. I knew what we went through, and I still cussed you out, and I told you not to talk about it. I told you we deserved it. Especially you, Maggie. I'm really, really sorry. And I want to say thank you for everything you've done for those girls at Circle of Hope. I wish I was paying attention. I really do. But you were the hero to so many girls, right, Maggie? Thank you.
We love you, Amanda. We love you.
I honestly never thought I would be back in Stockton. We moved here July 5th, 2001. We moved from a boarding school in Florida. I was really young there. I don't remember much. I do remember they had a spanking room. I was not allowed to go in that room, and I knew that if I went into that room, it would be worse for me. I know that they forced children to use their toothbrush to scrub the kitchen floor, and then they forced those children to then use that toothbrush on their own mouth. That school started allowing girls to wear boy shorts. Skirts were only allowed in this school, below your knee, 6 inches below your knee. Christian rock music was being allowed, and Disney movies were allowed. At this point, in 2001, my dad said it was becoming too nice, and so he found Agape boarding school for boys, and we moved to Stockton, Missouri. When I was there, I was a bit naive, but I will tell you, Alan Knoll is actually the first boy I ever witnessed get restrained at Agape. And I can tell you, I remember what his face looked like after. This place was not a place you should send any kid struggling with anything. My dad then took the practices of Agape boarding school and opened up Circle of Hope in July of 2006. When it first opened, honestly, it was just myself and 3 girls. It was really completely different. My whole childhood, I was abused at home. We were locked in our house. We were not allowed to leave. We were beaten for being kids. And when I say beaten, we were literally, my dad would take golf sticks to us. When we moved to Agape, like 2 months after, I actually ran away. I didn't get far. I only ran up this hill, but at Agape, it's such a big property, you think you're gone. And then I was like, oh, I can go to my friend Ashley Clemenson's house. And I went to her house and I told her everything. Her parents, Alan Clemenson and Angela Clemenson, took me into Jim Clemenson's office. Jim Clemenson was sitting in his desk, and his wife, Kathy Clemenson, I refuse to call her the name that she wants us to call her, was sitting on the side. They made me sit down in a chair next to this big brass eagle. And then my mom and dad came in. I was not allowed to tell them what happened to me. Angela and Alan did. Jim looked me in the eyes and said, if you were being punished, you did something to deserve it. And then I left. I had tried running away multiple times. After Circle of Hope opened, like I said, it wasn't as abusive when it first started. But once we started getting more girls, it started getting extremely abusive. We, as teenagers, were forced to sit on top of our peers' pressure points and push all of our weight on their pressure points. And if we were not pressing hard enough, we were told it would be us next. And the way they were screaming, you knew you did not want that. So you did, and you hurt yourself by putting as much weight on them as you can. These were teenagers being forced to restrain their friends, their peers. So August 2006, July and August, myself and 2 girls, Mylin Nguyen and Chloe Goyes, were talking, and Mylin's like, I'm not having this. And Chloe started telling me that my dad was touching her in places that she knew that it would lead to something else. And she's like, I've been sexually abused and I don't want nothing to do with this. So we grabbed trash bags the next day, went around the house collecting all of the pants that I wasn't supposed to have. We filled up 2 big black garbage bags full and got in a car and basically asked people for money and made it all the way to New Mexico. This was literally a month after opening, and I witnessed a lot in my family because my parents were extremely abusive, but let me tell you, being forced to restrain someone is probably the worst thing that I ever had to go through, because you are being forced to inflict pain on your friend, and you're being told that you will be tortured after if you don't. I don't know what else to say other than I was kicked out in 2009 because I had told a girl, a 5-year-old, they had a 5-year-old girl, and my dad had a devotions and was speaking about how if you are a woman and you wear pants, you're going to hell. Well, her mom wore pants, and she told me she was crying. I asked her why she was crying, and she told me she didn't want her mom to go to hell for wearing pants. I looked at her, and I said, if your mom is going to hell for wearing pants, my sister, my aunt, and my mom, who are all dead, are in hell for wearing pants. Somehow that got back to my parents, and that was not acceptable. and so I was kicked out. I did not want to think of it anymore. I did keep in contact with some of the girls, but once they started publicly speaking about it, that's when I would cuss them out and I would tell them to shut up. I remember I was visiting my parents, and in 2013, Maggie sent my dad a letter, and I read the letter, and I thought, I hate this guy. I'm sorry.
Mayor, now sleep it out. Mayor.
I blocked her from my Facebook, and I told myself I would never talk to her again because my father would never touch someone in that way. It wasn't until 2016 that I got a message from another survivor, and I instantly read, I was like, no. And then I just started thinking, my dad was never affectionate with me. I never got hugs, and I never got kisses from my own father. There's no way he can say, I treat my daughter this way, because he never treated his daughter this way. But at the first home in Florida, there were a few girls that he always kept with him. He would take them on his days off with my mom, out to eat, out shopping, while me and my brother were forced to stay home and clean. Then I started remembering how he would always have one specific girl in the beginning, in his office, massaging his head. Now, the girl I ran away with, because she had claimed my father sexually touched her, he put this rule into place where you always have to go with yourself and 2 girls. So that means he would have to have 3 girls in his office while Candace massaged his head. That was never the case. Very rarely was there 2 girls with Candace and him alone, or Candace and him in his office. Most of the time, the door was more closed than open. And I just started thinking back. I called my brother and I asked him for Maggie's phone number. And I called Maggie up. And I told her, you have absolutely no reason to lie to me. If my father touched you in that way, please tell me now, and I will believe you. And as she's telling me her story, I'm reading this other girl's story, and they all line up word for word, literally word for word. Maggie had never met this girl, not until 2020, and I got them introduced, or 2018, I can't remember. And there is no way either one of them are lying about their story. They are not the only ones. There are other girls in every single one of their stories add up. And so that's when we basically got together and we were like, we have to do something about this. And we started Proactive Survivors, a Circle of Hope in 2016, I think it was. We had contacted DSS, and they told us their hands are tied. There's nothing that they can do. Every time we tried contacting the sheriff's department, we never received a phone call back, or we never got a call, or we never got heard. We were never getting any response back. We tried KY3 News. We tried everything. We got Michelle Nickerson. Her sister got sent to Circle of Hope in 2018, and she actually found a highway patrol officer who did an extensive investigation on Circle of Hope. And let me tell you, every time this highway patrol officer, Travis Hitchcock, called me, he was in tears because of the stuff that he was hearing and reading and the stuff that he was finding. It didn't go anywhere. We sent it to the DA in Springfield, and I contacted her, and she told me it was not her jurisdiction, and we needed to contact Humansville Public Attorney. Well, every time we've contacted Humansville, we're always told to come to Cedar County, and every time we contact Cedar County, we're always told to go to Humansville. So we went to Facebook, and we started just speaking out from there. March 8th of this year, a former Agape student, Joseph Askins, messaged me. And he said, I need to tell you something about your father's school. And I said, is he dead? And he said, no. And I said, well, what is it? He sent me a video. And that video, I can't explain what that video did. That video sent every single one of us back into panic mode because his voice. From there, we posted that video on Facebook, and it went pretty far. It wasn't until Miranda actually contacted and told me, she's like, you need to get on TikTok. You need to get on TikTok. And I'm all like, no. And then May 1st, 2020, a boy, Cornelius Frederick, lost his life in a facility called Lakeside Academy, owned by Sequel. He threw a sandwich, and he was restrained the same way myself and other teenagers were forced to restrain our peers. And he lost his life. Every single one of our Circle of Hope survivors that are here today actually got on TikTok, and we started sharing our stories, because that could have been any one of us. That could have been any one of us restraining our friend, and they lost their life. And we knew that if it was happening in other facilities, we needed to speak out because we dealt with that. And so thanks to Miranda, we got on TikTok, and it literally blew up overnight, and that's why we are here today. So.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, guys. Thank you, Amanda, by the way. It was really emotional. And thank you, everybody, for sharing. Let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. We'll gather here, here shortly,
it's not
guys.
15?
I'm gonna use this break to try to start setting up AB.
Yeah, I'm gonna.